Welcome back. This week I got the cracks repaired on the Harley trunk. I got a little more work finally done on that old Rome grater, and I'm going to show you how to safety wire the main caps on this tractor block. I also got some footage from a couple of my seniors that I want to share with you. Hope you enjoy it. I've got the areas marked for the Harley trunk that I want to repair. We're going to get rid of the holes where the emblems were, and also where the hinges are, there's a lot of cracks there, so we're going to grind that out, put in some fiberglass, and then we'll be able to finish it off and get ready to prime. Now that the fiberglass that I put onto the trunk is all hardened, I can go ahead and get these ground down, get ready to finish them off with some body filler, and it'll be ready to prime. Trick is to get all this ground down so it's relatively flat. Some of it may not need any filler, but once we get that flat, we'll do a little blocking on it, see what it looks like from there in case it does need filler. But otherwise, we'll just get all this these repairs ground down, and that'll take care of all the cracks that it had. And then again, we'll be able to finish it off. With the fiberglass all ground down, we're going to take our D8 with some 80 grit, get everything sanded down to see exactly where the filler needs to go. With it all D8 down with 80, I went ahead and skim coated over top of some of the areas that we fixed with fiberglass. We'll get these blocked down now, and it'll be ready for priming. I've got all the body filler sanded down. It looks really good, so we should be just about ready to put this thing in primer and maybe get it painted by next week.
During the disassembly of the carburetors, I noticed that one of the pilot jets was broken, so I have a new one to replace it with. Now I'm putting the carbs back in.
With the carburetors back in the intakes, he's using a hose pick tool to walk on the airbox boots. Then he'll be able to tighten everything down, get the airbox tight to the frame, and that'll be it.
Here you can see the pins coming from the guides. After cleaning the pins, I add a little anti-seize before putting it back together.
Getting back on the steering shaft for the old grater, you can see that the pin has two flat places on it, and that's for the steering joint to go. So we have to copy that onto the new piece that we've machined. So if you put these two ends together, then what I'm going to do is just mark the width of each one. So what that's going to do, I'll draw the line all the way across, and that's going to tell me how much I need to grind down and how wide it's going to be, and then we can measure it from there. And we have to do that not only on both sides, but also on both ends. I'm using a bench grinder to get the flats on the steering shaft for the grater taken care of. I've got one more side to go. It's working pretty well, so we'll get this side ground down, make sure it's 3/4 of an inch, and we'll be ready to drill the holes for the bolts to put this piece back together. Here's the steering shaft that I machined and ground down the ends too. So the only thing we have to do now is drill holes in both ends of it so that it'll accept the coupler. Now here's the coupler that connects the shaft to the actual steering on one end and then to the steering box on the other. This coupler is fine. This one actually hooks to the steering shaft itself, but I'm going to need to make one of these as it was broke and sheared off and gone to hook to the other end of this to go to the steering box. So I'm either going to have to make one of these here that works kind of like a universal joint, or probably go to a Tractor Supply house and they might have something that'll work for me. In fact, I'm sure they will. It's just a matter of how I want it to look. Do I want it to keep, you know, the 1920 whatever style, or do I want to put something newer on there that'll work just as well, if not better? So once I make that decision, we'll hopefully get all this back together next week and be ready to put it back on the machine and check the steering.
Hi, my name is Kevin Rivera. I am a senior at the Hylton Automotive program, and today we have some footage of an oil change on a 2006 BMW 330i. First, we lift up the car using a floor jack, and then we place jack stands underneath. Next, we use a 3/8 ratchet to loosen the bolt on the bottom of the oil pan. It had been a while since this car's last oil change, so you can see how dark the oil is. Next, we remove the oil filter, which is located on the top of the engine. The next step is removing any old seals and replacing them with new ones that come with the oil filter. Remember to lube them up with oil. Don't forget to put your drain plug back in. The new filter screws into place hand tight, and we're ready to add oil.
I'm ready to safety wire the main caps for the old Fordson tractor block. I've done a few of them already because I wanted to make sure I remembered how to do it, because it's been many years since I've done them. So I've got my stainless steel safety wire and I've got my safety wire pliers. So what I'm going to do is zoom in on this now and let you watch me do one. Hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing here. I've got the camera on the opposite side, so hopefully it doesn't go blurry and I'm going to stay out of the way. The first thing we're going to do is cut a length of wire. It's going to be longer than we're going to need it. I'm going to bring it through and get it relatively even. It doesn't have to be perfect, but even ends so that it sits that way. And since we want this bolt to continue tightening, we're going to wrap this piece of wire around this way. Okay, like so. I'm going to bring both pieces around actually, but it's going to come in this direction is the point. Now what I like to do with these, most of the time fasteners that are done like in aviation are round, like Allen bolts or something, so it's not as common to have the sharp edges like this. But what I'm going to do is take my hammer and kind of walk these down a little, get it a little bit tighter to the bolt. It's not necessary, but I think it looks neater as well. Now this one's going to get twisted in a clockwise direction, so we want to make sure that we've already got these set to do that. So then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my safety wire pliers and I'm going to come in at a little beyond the bolt where it's going to come in, because once I start twisting this wire it's going to shorten up. Now that I've got those both pulled, I'm going to take my safety pliers and grab both wires together like so. And there's a locking mechanism on the handle to the pliers. And once I get that locked in place and have both of them there, what I'm going to do next is you'll be able to watch the pliers turn. The knob that's on the end of the pliers here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull on that. And it is spiraled inside of here, and what it's going to do is it's going to force the pliers to spin very rapidly in a clockwise position, and it's going to begin twisting the wire for me. So I'm going to hold down here, I'm going to pull the end, and watch the pliers. Okay, that's one spin. What I need to do now is I'm going to let go of the pliers, and then let go of that piece in the back. I'm going to spin it again. And I'm going to do that 3 or 4 times until I get the twist that I'm looking for. Okay, that's 4 times. It looks pretty good there. You can see how it's shortened up, so now I'm closer to this inside of the bolt. Now what I'm going to do is undo the lock in the pliers, and I can pull that loose from there. So you can kind of see the idea of what we're trying to achieve here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one end of these and put it through the hole in the second bolt, like that. I'll take my pliers, grab it, and just pull through, like so. Okay, so then, now this one is going to get done in a counterclockwise position, so I'm going to have to do this one manually. So what I'm going to do, knowing that I'm going to be going in a counterclockwise position, I'm going to put this one over the other one. I'm going to pull these kind of tight, a little bit on this corner anyway. I'll bring the 2 wire pieces together, and I'm going to grab them again, like I did the first time. Lock it down in the pliers. Now again, remember what I said, I can't go, whoops. These are used pliers, so they're not quite grabbing as tightly as I would like for them to. Alright, yeah, that worked that time. Now I can't pull the handle this time because I don't want it in a clockwise position, so I'm going to twist these counterclockwise by hand until I get the twist that I'm looking for. I'll take my hammer, just kind of help that end along. Again, it's not necessary to do that, but it definitely makes it look better. Alright, now that I've got it twisted tight to the bolt here, I know you can't see that part, but I've got the winding all the way down to that corner. I'm going to release the pliers. That's going to stay in position. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a pair. I can use these if I want to. It's got a cutter on it, but these are just easier to control. So I'm going to take a pair of side cutting pliers. I'm going to come down just a little bit beyond where the twist ended. Cut those 2 off. Now the idea is that you want to fold this over itself. Not because it's going to make it any stronger. It's as strong as it's going to get anyway. But if anybody's ever in here, it keeps you from cutting your fingers. And that's done in aviation too, because part of the inspections, they don't want people running their hands across it and cutting themselves because the end of these wires are going to be very sharp. So what I'm going to do is just kind of squeeze those together like so. I'm going to push that down. And then you can see the idea here. This bolt here tries to loosen any at all, it's going to try to pull this one tight. If this one tries to loosen, it's going to pull this one tight. All right, so there's no way that the bolts can back off under any kind of vibration or anything else. So that's a good way to do it. This engine was done that way from the factory, so we just copied it and did the same thing because clearly there was a reason that they wanted it done. Here's a better view of it all. Hopefully you can get a better idea of when one tries to loosen, it automatically tightens the other one, so therefore neither one can back out. Next time on Bulldog Builds, we'll have the Harley trunk primed and blocked and ready for paint. We'll see if we can get that Rome grater shaft back together. We'll also check in with Jonah to see how much more work he's gotten done on the Kawasaki, and hopefully we'll have at least one piston put in that Fordson tractor block. See you next week.